Hello. Welcome to a live Kerfefe break on Deprogram with Keri Smith. I am your host, Keri. Thank you for being patient. I see a bunch of you guys in the chat. We had some tech issues on our end with our special guest today. It's my birthday, so today's just going to be a fun stream. I'm still getting over this sickness, so I apologize. If my special guest makes me laugh, you will probably hear me coughing still, which is that I already told him no, I still want to laugh. I'll just mute myself. The book that we're reading, Political Punerology. You can get more info about book club at our book club group on Facebook. This is an excellent book. As always, I recommend you get the version with the foreword by Michael Rechtenwald. We're going to be discussing this book later this month, and we'll put details in the comments below. Okay, without further ado, my special guest today is my husband. He's a musician. His name is Anthony Garcia. He's from Lubbock, Texas. His music has been described as cinematic Americana, which I just love that phrase. I think it's a perfect description of his music. And he did the intro music that you just heard in the intro here for Deprogrammed. He also did the intro music for Pop Culture. And please welcome Anthony. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? I can hear you. Can everybody else hear him? I can boost you a little. Let's see.
Yeah, boost me up.
Okay.
Boost me up. Man, I was just jamming out to that awesome intro music.
I think a genius made that.
I was like jamming.
Yeah, I think we're wearing the same color today.
You know what? I have a question for you before we get started.
Yeah.
How many podcast guests do you have that you have the same wallpaper as? That's what I want to know. Your matching wallpaper.
I don't think that's ever happened before. Anthony's in a different room, if you can't tell, because it was too complicated with the microphones being in one room. We haven't figured that out or mastered it yet. But yes, he is in a different room of our house that's currently being renovated. And we've already got a super chat. Thank you. Pirate Tomsky is here. You guys give it up for my Pirate Tomsky. 10 lira. Happy birthday, Keri.
10 lira. Turkish, 10 Turkish lira.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Just laugh. Just laugh.
Just laugh. You can hear my gross cough.
Let the laughter flow.
So I do want to interview you like any other guest.
Okay.
As well as I can. So I asked my producers for some questions. My esteemed moderator, producers, and they gave me quite a few questions. So the first one is, let's see. Why are you so handsome? I'm just kidding.
Is this interview is gonna go?
I'm kidding. Oh, excuse me. No. The first question, actually, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I've talked about you sometimes on the show, and people that follow Deprogrammed or follow me on social media may have heard some of your music, but not everyone who watches is a regular viewer. Some people are casual viewers the first time here. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How do you describe yourself to people?
Well, so first of all, thank you for having me on your show. Happy birthday, Keri. Happy birthday to you. So how would I describe myself? I am a pianist, I'm a guitarist, and I'm a singer, and I write songs, and I play live regularly. I'm a working musician, which means, I hustle and I set my own gear up and I tear my own gear down. I book my own gigs. I go to the hardware store and buy power strips, and I do all the hard work. And then to get to gigs in the area locally, I also write all the music and write the music that I play. I play a lot of covers here and there, and I make my living playing music. Would be the kind of like the day job part of what I do. And the other side of what I do is I like to be musically creative through songwriting, through music composition, and through production of albums, through songs. So there's the creative side of it, and then there's also the kind of the workhorse day job side of it. that's how I would kind of describe myself. I mean, I pride myself on hustling and working hard, but I also, um, my passion is being creative. And, like any field of endeavor, sometimes it's a trick to find the balance between being creative and, making a living. And that's how I would describe myself, I think.
I will say this, you and I have talked about this before, but our audience might be interested in my opinion on this. You are unique in that you are a very creative person. You're left-brained and right-brained. You're very creative. You're an artist, but you're also very high in conscientiousness. Like if you were to do the Jordan Peterson's Big Five, you're high in openness and conscientiousness. It's like the left and the right. And like you said, you're a hustler. And sometimes people are really, they're, if they're really talented, if they're really artistically talented, they're not as great. They're not as organized or conscientious. They don't have a good work ethic. And you have a good balance. I think when we first started dating, I was telling you that, and I was like, like Hitler. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But
And
people
I was
say he
like,
was.
and I was like, what does conscientious mean? Can you?
No.
I had to look it up.
Um, you did not have to look it up.
I
But that's a joke, guys, about Hitler being left and right brained. But it's something that I think is pretty rare to have that, like, to be good in both of those areas. And I think a lot of times you see, like when I worked in comedy, there was one of the most talented comedians I ever worked with. Every comedian that I knew said he was like their favorite comic. He was a real comics comic. But he wasn't hardworking, like, at all. He had, like, the least
Mhm,
amount of conscientiousness.
mhm,
And Chris Rock used to say this guy was, like, his favorite comic, and he was like, "But he doesn't work. He doesn't
mhm,
work at all. He doesn't put the work in." And
mhm,
and you can actually have less talent and be a hard worker and make up for it and be successful. You can be successful. Chris Rock was always like, "I'm not even as nearly as funny as him, but I work my ass off," you know?
mhm, mhm.
And you have a good balance of that, which do you think that's rare? I think it's rare.
Maybe. I mean, it's something that, so when I first started playing music when I was younger, like when I first started playing guitar and figuring out, the art of, performing, and just kind of, I relied on my raw talent very heavily. And I was very lazy as a result of that. And all through my teens, and probably mainly basically through my teens, I was very lazy, didn't try. I just would pick up, I just show up. Sometimes I wouldn't, and I would play in various situations. And it wasn't until I got to music school that I was pretty much basically humbled into realizing that there's an entire world that I didn't know about, that I actually had something to learn. Imagine that, a teenager being humbled. But I was humbled, and that's when I realized, that I had a lot to learn, and I started kind of developing that side of my personality. I guess what I'm saying is, early on, I was very was relying on on raw talent, and was relying on just my intuition. And I didn't realize that I needed to actually how important it was to be organized, and how important it was to exercise the left side of the brain, or having organizational skills and that kind of thing. So
Mm.
yeah, it's something that I think that comes with maturity with some people, and it comes with age. And just, I mean, when reality sets in, that you need those are handy tools to have, then it's kind of a necessity at some point in your life, to do something, to do that.
Yeah. We've got a couple of questions from the
Okay.
chat already, so I'm gonna put some of these on the screen. You guys are cracking me up. Pirate says, "Damn you, Keri." Um, okay. Thank you. Asencina? What's Anthony's favorite thing about Lubbock?
Highway 84 that leads southeast out of town towards where I live.
No.
Lubbock is very beautiful. It's flat. I hated it growing up, just like everyone hates their hometown. I really hated it because it was, I thought it was ugly, and there was nothing there. No, there was no opportunity and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't until I left that I realized the beauty of Lubbock, and which is now, in my older age, it's flat. The sunsets are beautiful. It's dry. There's no humidity there. Oh my gosh, I love that. And you can get anywhere in 5 minutes in that town. There's no traffic. You can actually run errands. You can run several errands in one day. The food's great. There's a great barbecue, Mexican food, and it's my home. And I think there's a certain kind of energy there. That's the desert. It's and the downtown, as you know, Keri, the downtown is still. It's not. It hasn't been developed. It's still intact from in the same shape it was back in 1950, basically. So it's kind of that's what's kind of cool about it too. And the music. I mean, of course, Buddy Holly's came from there, and that's just Waylon Jennings is from Littlefield, which is right down the street. Joe Ely, who is a very famous songwriter in Texas. He's in his 70s now. Of course, Stubbs, who started Stubbs Barbecue, the original Stubbs Barbecue. I think the original Stubbs Barbecue was in Lubbock, and he was from Lubbock. And he started, there's obviously a giant Stubbs here in Austin, and it's a huge music venue. There's a lot of great music history from Lubbock, and I'm very proud to have grown up there. And, there was not a lot to do growing up, except play music. So, which was, or, commit small minor crimes and do drugs and get wasted, which I did all of those. I did all of those.
You did those.
I did all of those.
Yeah, he has some stories, guys. You engaged in the whole like boys will be boys and the minor crime element. You guys did things I had never even heard of. Like you told me about a Long John Silver bomb.
Yeah, we used to have.
We don't.
But we used to do.
Yeah.
At lunchtime, we used to throw soft drinks at strangers on the road on the way back to school or at each other. And the Long John Silver's bomb was pretty amazing because we'd go to Long John Silver's and we put ketchup, vinegar, mustard, mayonnaise, Dr. Pepper, iced tea, salt, pepper, sugar, everything we could find, and we'd mix it up. And it ended up looking like the green slime from Nickelodeon. And then we would chase each other around with like 24-ounce cups. And one time we hit somebody else, hit one of our friends' car. We were having a war, and we hit somebody's car, and then that smell. It was right next to the school, to our high school, which is Lubbock High School, and the smell permeated throughout the school. Those are the Coke wars. Those are the Coke
kind
wars.
Of pranks, yeah. Long John Silver bomb. I had never done that prank. I told you, I think the best prank I pulled was I went to a science and math high school. For anyone who doesn't know, you live there. It's a boarding school for 11th and 12th grade, and this was a prank people would do sometimes in dorm rooms like that. You take all the cans out of the recycling, and while people are sleeping or there's, in the room, you stack all the cans up in front of their closed door. And then you take newspapers and you cover the doorway. So the cans are sandwiched in between the door and the newspapers. And then the morning when they wake up and they open the door, all the cans fall on them. It's so stupid.
That's funny.
When you're in high school, you do things you don't, as an adult, maybe nobody's going to spend time with the can trick. Anyway. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Super chat. Channel Julio. Thank you, sir. $9.99 says my big boss has a quad chart with smart stupid on the x-axis and active lazy on the y-axis. Active and stupid is clearly the worst quad, but people in the lazy and stupid quad can be trained. Yes, that makes sense. Yes, because you're just if they're in the lazy and stupid quad, they can still be stupid, but they can be trained not to be lazy. Mm-hmm. Great comment. And Poetry Painter 25, thank you, pretty lady. She says, happy birthday, Keri, and hello, Anthony. Come and visit us sometime soon. Oh, we would love to. Yeah, I know about where you're at now. And
where they at?
In Texas. I won't say where specifically, but
can you give their address? Can you copy paste the drop pin into the chat?
No, don't think we'll do that. Right. Okay. Couple more like fun questions, and then I have some more big picture kind of questions for you.
Okay.
Tyler Turducken wants to know, what is Chews and Chops? That's on your hat.
Yeah. I'm wearing this hat. So Chews Chops is a deer. It's a deer processing store
in a town near us
in our area.
Yeah. And you can take your own. You can take your own deer there.
And
you are breaking up a little bit, babe.
Something just happened.
Try saying something now. Is he breaking up for everyone else, or is it just me? Okay. If you can hear me, try, if you have any other windows open on your machine, try shutting them down. And also, you can try leaving the StreamYard link and coming back. Yeah, he's frozen for everyone. Okay. I'm going to let him figure it out. I'm taking you off. Okay, he can rejoin. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. We tried doing this. If we did it in the same room, the microphones pick each other up, and there's like a double echo. So we decided to do it in separate rooms, and hopefully he can get back in. Thank you guys for hanging out with me on my birthday. While we wait for him, I'm going to brag on him. I'm going to show you a video, or have it pulled up anyway, so we can play it at some point. A little bit of it. And also let you know, if you are in the Fort Worth area, Dallas-Fort Worth area, he's got a show coming up at the Ridgely Theater on November, I think it's the 5th. Here he is. Anthony.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm using my phone Wi-Fi now, so.
You're what?
I just had to connect to my phone. Sorry about that. I guess the Wi-Fi in the house isn't doing that great, so.
Yeah, that's okay. So I was telling them about your show in Fort Worth. It's at the Ridgely Theater. What date is that?
It's a Saturday. It's Saturday, November 5th.
Okay. We'll put the ticket link in the chat below. I'm pulling up your video, so if we lose you again, I can play a little clip of this. Okay. So why don't you tell me a little bit about music? Because as someone who's, I'm biased. Clearly, I'm your wife. I think you're immensely talented, but I think you're immensely talented, even if I weren't your wife. I think that's undeniable. And as someone who doesn't have that talent, who watches you, I think it's like a gift that you have and that you've honed. You've also put a lot of hard work in, as we mentioned. But what was that like, discovering music for you as a child? Like, I know you discovered it when you were young.
Yeah. So you mean you want me to start like, how I just got into music in general?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so a couple things. The first thing that really kind of got me interested in music was watching Michael Jackson do the moonwalk on, I think it was the Grammy Awards, or it was some award ceremony. That was kind of one of the turning points for me. That was probably back in 1983 or something like that. That was just, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's the truth. It's like, so I was like, I want to perform. I want to be in front of people and make people feel good through performing. And that was the first thing. The second thing was my next door neighbors they were two boys, and they were taking piano lessons, and they that was interesting to me because I was kind of jealous of them because they would be taking piano lessons and going to music theory classes, and they had a piano in their house, and so I would just go over and kind of like hang out with them and watch them play and listen to the pieces they were learning. And that got me really interested in music. My friend's dad down the street could play Fur Elise, which is the Beethoven piece. No, 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 no. It's like the only piece he could play. But I was fascinated. I was like, thought he was the greatest pianist that ever existed. And so those kind of things early on got me interested in, learning about music. And then it kind of just went from there. But that was like the catalyst of kind of, I guess, my introduction to what music was, when I was young.
Yeah.
And then, from there I started, my friends who lived next door, they were playing things like the theme from Star Wars and, that kind of like those kinds of things. And so I would memorize them, and I would start playing. We would have these piano contests with each other. I didn't know how to play piano, but we would have piano contests. And so we would sit there and take turns, and I'd play, and then they would play, and I'd play the songs they were learning. And then their mom went to my mom and said, "Did you know that your son knows how to play the piano?" And my mom was like, "No, I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me." And then my mom was like, "Anthony, do you know how to play the piano?" And I was like, "I mean, like, I guess a little bit." So then they put me in piano lessons. I did that for a couple of years, like group piano lessons. And that was kind of boring. And then they put me in these private lessons and I hated it. I fell asleep during one of them. And that was my last lesson. I think I took like 2 private lessons when I was like 8, but there was always a piano at the house. Meaning there was a little keyboard, like a little Yamaha keyboard with headphones. So I made myself just kind of, in my free time, just like learn chord shapes and that kind of thing. And then my parents would be watching a movie and I'd listen to that and I'd learn the theme. I would memorize the songs that were playing on the TV and I would play them on the piano and I kind of just played by. The short story is that I played by ear. ended up just mimicking things that I heard, and that's what I was saying about earlier. I was talking about relying on my raw talent. I wasn't trying to develop anything. I just would take what I heard and just it wasn't always it wasn't always 100% right, but it was maybe 75% right. As I was 8, or 9, so I would just kind of try my best to imitate what I heard. Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of where that started. And that's back when in the 80s before I was 10. So that's kind of where that started.
Just FYI, you are still a little choppy. So I want you to consider, I know sitting in here is not ideal, but I want you to consider coming and sitting next to me, and you would not be my Yoko Ono. I would be your Yoko Ono. Are
you trying to make me Yoko Ono?
No.
Let's maybe. Well, can we continue like this just a little longer, and I'll okay.
And then we'll decide. Okay. If it's very distracting, you guys let us know. And Anthony's considering it. So
that's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. It's just a little choppy. Yeah, Pirate says we can use the same mic. I know. It's also a matter of just like, I don't want to make him my Yoko Ono. He says, don't be Yoko. Yes, that's what we're trying to avoid. So you've told me this story before, but I want people to hear it because I think it's so interesting. You, like you said, you taught yourself piano. You ended up going to Texas Tech and studied classical piano later on. You told me a story about how you first discovered classical music.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us that story?
Yes. So this gets us to like when I was in high school, after I had already been playing guitar in bands for many years and rock, and I was very much growing up into heavy metal and hard rock, and that style of music, which kind of leads me to what I'm about to the story I'm about to tell you, because classical music was probably the farthest thing away from anything I would have ever listened to in high school. So for Christmas one year, my dad got me, the gift he got me was a Sony Walkman. And this is 1990. Okay. So Sony Walkmans were very, popular back then. And they were, anyway, so he got me a Sony Walkman. Gift. It was a very cool gift. It was the latest technology. And so the tape that he got me to go along with the Sony Walkman was the best of Bach. And I still have that cassette today. And so as a joke, he got that for me and he gave me I unwrapped the gift and he was like, here you go. And I was like, that's great, Dad, thanks. And he was like, yeah, I know, it's funny. Ha ha. We had a laugh. So it was Christmas Day and I went to my room, put my little wiry headphones on, the little puffy headphone with a little wire. And I sat in my bed and I put the best of Bach tape on, and it was snowy outside. And the only thing I can really say is that I listened to that tape and it was just like I was hearing the voice of God talk to me. It was and as you know, I talk about Johann Sebastian Bach probably too much. I'm always telling you about him, and just because he's this enigma, not an enigma really. He's just a never-ending source of music, and just you'll never be able to unravel all of his works and everything that he was about in one lifetime. It's possible. But on that day, I got a glimpse of what could be done with music and what had been done with music. It was later on that sparked my interest in classical music. And then, of course, during that same time, the movie Amadeus came out, and that really spoke to me because
Hmm.
It was the way that Mozart was portrayed in the movie was as an independent musician, was a rock star. He was someone who liked to drink and party, and he liked to stay out late, and he liked to show up. Again, that's someone who was just relying, for the most part, relying on his raw talent. I mean, he had so much. Mozart had more raw talent than any composer, really, I think, that has ever existed. His talent versus maybe someone like Johann Sebastian Bach, for example. One friend of mine said a great quote. He said, Bach was God, Mozart was an angel, and Beethoven was human. And that's describing their music. Mozart's music just flowed from him. He if you look at his manuscripts, and this is actually true, it's not just something from the Amadeus movie, but his manuscripts, meaning his scores that he wrote, his piano pieces, his quartets, his symphonies, his operas, were meticulous, and they were first drafts. He would just write them out because he already knew exactly what he wanted in his mind. And the music just flowed from him. It wasn't a problem. It was like a never-ending fountain of
From God, I
yeah,
think.
he was inspired, right? He was inspired,
He's
and he
inspired.
was just taking dictation. Almost, it was almost as if he was taking dictation from someone. Is what it seems like. Anyway, so that was really that aspect of Mozart's character really appealed to me because it's every musician's dream. It's probably everyone's dream to just be able to sit down at a piano and dazzle everyone and just effortlessly, which is what he did
Yeah.
in his life. I mean, there's just so many stories about Mozart. I mean, unbelievable stories about him that. I mean, I was just showing you the other night this opera that he wrote. I had never even heard of this. Lucio Silla, I believe it's called. He wrote it when he was 16 years old to moderate reviews in Vienna when he was 16. It's just unbelievable. He made a trip to Rome when he was 12, and I forget the piece that was there, but it was forbidden to write the piece down or to share the score with anyone, and he memorized it and went home to Salzburg and wrote it out. And they got upset because they thought he had stolen the score from the Vatican, but he memorized it and wrote it down. Stories like this about Mozart are sorry.
He just wrote it all on it reminds me of people saying that, Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote the Gulag Archipelago
Right.
in his head while in the Gulag, memorized it because he wasn't able to actually write it until he was out and like write it down on paper. And just having that kind of a brain for that is incredible.
I see Adam in the chat is talking about Era String, which is a part of a greater suite. It was written by Bach. That's actually the first piece I ever heard of Bach, which was followed by Toccata and Fugue, the great D minor organ work. Anyways, but that got me interested in classical music, and that showed me kind of what was out there. That opened my eyes to the fact that there's more than just rock and roll. There's more than just playing fast guitar music, playing fast. And I learned that, there were guys doing this before electricity invented, and they were having to write all the notes out instead of just playing them, which blew my mind. And I was like, I need to learn how to read and write music, because I couldn't for a very long time. And that's another story, but so I did eventually,
So it's still pretty choppy.
Okay.
So I think you should probably come in here. I'm going to read a couple more of these super chats, but we can get you set up in here. It won't be bad, I promise.
All right. Was it choppy before when I was on the house Wi-Fi?
No. You want to try that one more time? Now you're frozen. Okay, I'm kicking you out. You can try one more time coming back in on the house Wi-Fi. Kick out guest. There we go. Does Anthony play classical music? He does. He was classically trained. And so, when he got to college, and he plays a lot. Actually, people sometimes ask me, like, does he play at home? Piano is mostly what he plays at home. Just practicing different classical pieces. He has so many in his head just from memory. And he'll sit down, like we were out the other day at a shop near us, and he just sat down. They had a grand piano in the shop, and he just started playing song after song of like Claire de Lune, like and they're all just up here. It just blows my mind. Hello, I'm bragging on you.
Maybe this is better.
Oh, that seems to be working well. Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I'm on the extender, which is right above me. Okay.
So if it goes out again though.
Okay, this is the third time. This is the third time.
Okay, cool.
We'll break the third wall.
We'll break the third wall. V. Allen says, "Happy birthday from a fellow October baby." Thank you, V. Allen. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in, me and Anthony. So, got a couple of questions for you in the chats and the super chats. Journal poems. Hello, sir. I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. He gave a super chat, $5. You guys should go check out Journal Poems YouTube page if you haven't. I've still got to have you on the show. That'll be so great. You guys will recognize him if you go to the YouTube page. Anyway, took the JBP personality test recently. I can relate to being high in both openness and conscientiousness. Happy birthday, Keri. Yeah, that's so rare. Very interesting. I think what a gift to be high in both, in my opinion, anyway. Cheeky Mayor says, I always listen to the intro at 2 times the speed. Anthony, can you play it faster?
If you can play it slow, you can play it fast.
What's that from?
I don't know. It's just something musicians say, classical musicians say.
There is no Yoko in this pairing. That's true. Although I could yell in the background if necessary.
Yoko Ono's cover of Billy Joel's Big Shot. We need to do that. That's
so funny.
That's genius. That's just for me on so many levels. It just touched my heart. It touched my heart.
Do you guys know? I don't think I've ever played this on the show. Maybe I have, and I just can't remember. But I'm gonna pull it up for anybody who has not been privileged enough to see it. Oh, look, it's saved in my searches. You guys know Billy Joel's Big Shot, how it starts?
You gonna play it?
Yeah.
All right, I love it.
Excuse me. Yes, of course I'm gonna play it. It's so funny. So
I love Billy Joel.
Joel, you do?
Yeah.
Is he one of your favorite musicians?
Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
Okay, Billy Joel's Big Shot. Here we go. Let me add this to the stream.
I love this.
You guys are in for a treat if you haven't seen this. Okay. I think you're the one that showed me this.
Probably.
Oh my God, look at the people just standing there politely. That's enough of that. Oh my goodness. I love the people just standing in there like very politely, like they're watching something really, you know,
they're being open-minded.
Yeah, they're being people. You have to read this one, baby. I have to cough.
Okay, my cat just got up and left the room. Well, Lisa, we need to give some instruction to your cat on proper, not proper etiquette, but just what is good music? What is good art? What is art? How is good? This is great. This is a very wonderful. I mean, this is better than the original, in my opinion. This is much better than the original version, I think.
It's just so funny because your brain knows the song, and so your brain is waiting for the words. Your brain's like, oh, you're waiting for the words, and then it's like, oh, like it does not even trying to conform. it just it's genius. It's
Yeah, it really
comedy.
is. I love
It's
it. I
yeah.
love that so much.
Somebody says Lettuce says there's 3 minutes and 20 seconds of that. Wow. Yeah, there
Yeah.
is. And they all stood there politely.
And the thing is she was just committed. She was committed to it. She was committed to this performance. I could not do that. I could not do that. You know how much dedication it takes to do that with a straight face.
It's like Andy
or
Kaufman.
or you have to, yeah, it's like, well, maybe it's like Andy Kaufman, but I think she really believes in herself. She really is serious about it, and she believes that is art. That's one side of it. She has belief. She has belief and conviction that it is art, that is her voice. But I couldn't do that. I could not have done what she did. I could not have done it. I would have broken down in laughter within within 5 seconds. I would have. I mean, on some level, we have to appreciate the skill that takes on some
Yes.
level.
Yeah. Just to get up there and do it totally straight, right? Doug Murray. Yes, Doug, we have played this clip on the show. I know for sure. The one with John Lennon, he says, and Yoko jamming with Chuck Berry, and see the look on Chuck's face. That is also hilarious.
And there's one with Frank Zappa too.
Oh, I didn't know the Frank
Yeah,
Zappa one.
it's or they did the same thing with Frank Zappa, and of all people, Frank Zappa was very upset. It's like Frank Zappa does some of the weirdest stuff, and he was upset that Yoko
I
was
think
making.
one of these days at one of your shows, you should introduce your wife, Keri, as the come on, Keri, she's gonna do the cover of this famous song, and then I'll just do the Yoko. I'll just scream and keep a straight face. What do you think?
Nope.
No, not gonna happen. Okay. Couple more of these, and then I will get a little bit back on track with the big picture questions. Poetry Painter, thank you so much. $5 says, how many times have you been to Europe? Did you like it? The performances Keri posted of you were fire.
Well, thank you very much. It was a lot of fun this last time. I've been to Europe many times. The first time I ever went to Europe. So I've been to Europe to travel. I've been to Europe. I've lived there, and I've been there to play music. So I think I've been, I don't know, 10, 12 times, something like that. And each time was for 3 months. Sometimes it was for a year. Sometimes it was for 2 months. This last time it was for 3 weeks. So I've been many times, and I used to live in Germany. I was an exchange student there, and I studied music partially, but I also got a minor in German. And so I speak German as a result of that. And I spent a year there playing music and studying some German literature as much as I could, because it's not that easy to read. But anyways, so I've been there many times, and it was a blast. I love going over there.
You speak German. Do you think that you speak a little Korean as well? You lived in Korea for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you speak Spanish, English. It's like 4 languages, and you were learning French before COVID happened. And you had Anthony was doing a trade. There is a French professor near us who wanted to learn guitar, and so she was doing she would come over and do a French lesson, and then he would do a guitar lesson, which was pretty cool. And you were learning it quickly, in my opinion, as someone observing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think? I think that your ability with language is related to your ability with music. Do you think it is? Do you think of music like a language?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's exactly what it is. It's what's similar between music and learning music and learning a language is primarily one thing that overlaps is getting over fear of failing in front of someone. So when you're performing music in front of someone, you're going to naturally have fear, but learning how to get rid of that fear and to overcome that and say to yourself, I'm going to fail. I'm probably going to fail in front of people. And you're just going to have to come to terms with that. It's the same thing with language. In fact, when I'm learning language, I learn a language better when I do make a mistake, because I'll remember making that mistake and that sticks with me. And if I say something in a language and somebody corrects me, then it really sticks with me. So I think that overlap is there for sure. And there's also, the cadence, there's rhythm, there's dialect, there's also grammar, which is like there's music theory, there's the arithmetic of music, there's also the arithmetic of language. You could look at it that way. There's the theory behind both. There are rules, and you have to learn those rules. You can break the rules, but you have to. better if you learn them first, in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's there's definitely a lot of similarity between them. I mean, I grew up speaking Spanish. My grandma didn't speak English, so I had to learn to speak with her. She lived with me from the time I was born until she passed away when I was 17. And then I learned German just because I wanted to learn it. I had to have a second language in college. And then Korean or French has always been a little bit elusive for me, but I was getting to the point in those lessons where I was speaking. We were having conversations. Our lessons were conversational. We were talking about as much as possible, as much as we could, and I was about the world and everything. But she was correcting me a lot, but I was able to communicate. And she was like, man, you're able to say what you want to say. That's good. You just kind of jump into it. It's wrong. What you're saying is wrong, but you're at least you're doing it. And that's the thing when I learn something, I just jump into it and I don't care if I make a mistake, and I'll learn later how to fix it. Korean though it's probably the hardest language I've ever tried to learn. And I really, really tried. I mean, I put in a lot of energy into that. I mean, before I moved, I lived in Korea for 4 years. I was an English teacher there. And before I moved there, I learned how to read and write Hangul, which is the phonetic alphabet for Korean. And it's the only alphabet. It's the alphabet that's only used for Korean. The Korean language has its own alphabet. Then I learned the number system, and the number system is, without getting too into the weeds about it, there's two number systems, because there's one system for counting minutes and hours, and there's one system for counting things, items, objects, and then there's another system of numbers for money, and there's another system of numbers for age. It's a very complex language, and that I learned that before I went there. And when I got there, I did language exchange with people, as many people as I could find. I did language exchanges with all the teachers at work, my coworkers. I did meet random people on the subway. I would meet just anybody I could. I would do language exchange with, where I would teach them English for an hour. They would teach me Korean, and I would say I was ahead of most of my fellow expats, because you don't really need to put the energy into learning Korean there, because
there's an expat
there's an expat community, and you can get by with speaking English for them, or just pointing, or Koreans have a lot of patience with foreigners as far as that goes. But I don't like to do that, and I wanted to learn the language. I was there. I mean, I'm conversational in Korean. I mean, I'm not.
You don't do anything half-assed.
Yeah, I try to really try to learn. So.
Apologies.
Yeah, it's okay.
You can feel free to read. I don't know if you can see the comments. Do you know where to see them?
I do.
If I have to cough at any point, feel free to jump in.
Okay.
The noob reviews. Thank you so much. Says, happy's a birthday. So cute to see you both on here together. Thank you. I'm having a good time, even though I'm still sick and we had technical difficulties. I appreciate you guys hanging in there. And now that you're pretty clear, you're not choppy for me. I hope you're not choppy for anyone else. I'd like to go back to some discussion about like classical music, and because there's some of that I was like distracted, but I'm so interested in talking about that with you. Before we do that, just a couple more of these. I don't want to miss them. You guys, thanks for all the super chats today. I can't tell you just how grateful I am for the support for Deprogrammed, and for helping me do these interviews and conversations and shows and the talks with Misty, Chris, and everything. So I really appreciate it. Demanji says, happy birthday, many more to you. Have a great day. Do you guys want to know what Anthony asked me what I wanted to do for my birthday? If we wanted to go to
Really? You're gonna say? I love it. Most women want to, I said, where do you want to go for your birthday? We'll go to dinner somewhere. I was expecting a sushi place. I was expecting
really fancy,
something fancy. And I was like, let's go to that really nice Italian place in town that we went to that time. It's really original, a really nice place. Keri wants to go to Cracker Barrel. My bass player calls it a boomer restaurant. He's like, let's think of all the boomer restaurants we could think of.
I haven't been to Cracker Barrel in a long time.
I like Cracker. It's your birthday. We can do whatever you want to do.
Thank you. And it gives me good nostalgia. It's like I used to
I
have,
understand.
Sunday. That's where you would go sometimes on Sunday for after church with family. Like it makes me think of my grandparents. And
Yeah.
I love their country store, and they love Dolly Parton. They have a lot of Dolly Parton stuff. Anyway, there's a lot of good reasons to go. When my grandfather was alive, he loved to play checkers, and they had those big checkerboards out front on their wraparound porch with the rocking chairs. Anyway, you, Kevin says, "Dang, I was hoping for a good restaurant recommendation." You can't go wrong at the Barrel, Kevin.
You just got one, Kevin.
You just got one. The Barrel. Yeah, see, that's what you call it. The Barrel.
It has nothing to do with being a cracker or a saltine American.
A saltine American. Yeah. So this is interesting. Doc Savage says this is when you were talking about you have to know the rules. You were talking about language and music, and something in common is you have to know the rules in order to be able to break them. Doc Savage says, like the Matrix, some rules you can bend, others you can break. And I think this is true I think this is why I have, and I think some people have an issue with postmodern art, is because I don't think most postmodern art, I don't think it's the case that most of it is someone who's very skilled and talented and knows the rules and is choosing to break them in creative ways. I can get behind that completely. But most of it's not that, though. Most of it is people who they're not talented. They don't know the rules, and they are breaking all the rules of art, right? But you don't even know them. You have to know them to break them. You don't have any talent. You're just disguising your lack of talent as this, like, I'm breaking the rules. It would be like Yoko Ono. No offense, Yoko. It would be like someone.
No offense.
It would be like someone coming and just yelling into him. It would be like me getting up on stage with your band and singing horribly, which I would horribly, and then saying, I'm breaking the rules. You just don't get. You're not smart enough to get it, right? Like, no.
I think the side of me, I think I'm still very hesitant to dismiss something. As you and I have discussed this, but I'll say it again, that I'm still very hesitant to dismiss that kind of art that might be easy to dismiss as like not good or not, not really requiring any talent. I still like to be, I guess, open-minded, you might say, or just, I'm slow to dismiss that. I'm slow to discard it and say it's trash because, somebody had put some effort into creating something, but we're seeing it. You're seeing it. It's been presented to you. It's made its way to you in order to interpret it. So that in and of itself takes some effort. Whether it's good art or bad art is, subjective, and that's up to our interpretation. That's what I think that's what art is, and music. And I mean, I can privately say to myself that this sucks or that sucks, but I respect the person. I respect creativity, and as hippie as that sounds or new agey as that sounds, whatever. But I'm always just a little bit hesitant to this.
I know you're more hesitant than I am. However, you will make big generalizations about, things that you're right up front about. We have some bands in common we don't like, like Jimmy Buffett.
Oh wait, are we getting into the hate list right now?
We don't have to get into the hate list. I'm just saying you've got some things on your hate list that I question myself, that I'm like, Jimmy Buffett, I understand. But then there's other bands on there that I'm like, what? He's smelling guiltily because he knows some of these are people's favorites. Okay, we don't have to diss any of those bands.
I will defend my opinions.
Okay, well, tell me a little bit about classical music's relation to metal, and then this can take us into that topic probably.
Okay, so I guess there are a couple of things. So obviously early on, like I mentioned before, I was, as a kid, I was when I was about 12 years old when I started playing guitar. I discovered, of course, Iron Maiden was the first band when I heard Iron Maiden, I heard Wasted Years. It's a song by Iron Maiden, and I heard that opening riff, and that was just like, I'm going to play guitar. I'm going to play electric guitar. That's what I'm doing. And then that took me down the path of metal and, heavy metal, hard rock, big hair metal, 80s metal, all the great guitar shredders. It took me into that. And that demands that style of music, that side of music in the 80s that was happening back then was also very opposed to a big difference between something like punk or the new wave that was happening or the mainstream pop that was happening. So I was really into that side of music, the virtuosic side, the displaying of technical ability, the requiring of technical ability, flashy playing, and so that side of music translated for me to classical music. And in classical music, there's a lot of harmonic similarities. There are a lot of harmonic similarities between a lot of the metal, the dark, maybe metal music that you would hear, and let's say, like, of course, some Bach pieces, or Vivaldi, or primarily Bach. Bach had a lot of, I guess, the technical side of it would be harmonic minor, which is a minor scale, which has certain elements that kind of the relationship between the notes makes it sound a little Egyptian, or makes it sound a little demonic. Without an instrument, I couldn't explain it to you, but just know that it's almost like kind of like Spanish style music, like flamenco style of music, Egyptian. It's going to be a darker sound. And
is this like Satie?
No. I mean, sometimes Satie. Again, that's the guy. That's another whole other subject. He used so many different palettes of harmony that he sometimes used very, let's say, like he used different modes of music, and some of them were completely different colors, because he came at a different time, and he's a completely different animal. He was coming from music in a completely different way, talking about postmodern and breaking the rules. I mean,
and I love Satie.
I love him too. But yes, that harmonic characteristic was present in his music, but it was not primarily present in his music.
Okay.
I'm talking about in most metal playing. Like, if you listen to, for example, Ozzy Osbourne, you listen to Randy Rhoads' guitar playing, who is Ozzy Osbourne's lead guitar player. He used a lot of this particular. You listen to his music, you're kind of listening to a classical guitarist, because he considered himself a classical guitarist. He was a classical guitarist. When he was on tour, he would seek out classical guitar teachers and go take a lesson in every major city that he was in. So he sought that, and it translates into his guitar solos that you can hear on Crazy Train. You can hear on I Don't Know. You can hear on Mr. Crowley. Mr. Crowley is an excellent example of what I'm talking about, as far as a solo, taking that and maybe looking at a Niccolo Paganini violin caprice. So there's a lot of harmonic similarities. And then the technical virtuosic demands that are placed on the musician. So those two things, that's where the overlap was for me. That's where it really appealed to me. And it still does.
Randy Rhoads, you say, metal guitarist, but classical guitarist, and actually would seek out, as you said, classical lessons and stuff.
Yeah.
You were telling me Saturday about a guitarist who had, oh gosh, it was one guitarist making fun of another guitarist. Who was that?
Let's see here. Are we talking about Megadeth and Metallica?
I think so. And you said he plays like a left-handed.
Oh, no. We're talking about Jimmy Page and Eddie Van Halen.
Okay.
This was yesterday. We were standing in line we're at breakfast, and we were standing in line,
and
they're playing Led Zeppelin. And we were talking about Jimmy Page is the lead guitarist for Led Zeppelin. And I love Jimmy Page. I love him. There's no buts there's not. However, his lead guitar playing, his technique is very sloppy. He doesn't exactly he has wonderful ideas. He has amazing ideas. That's what makes him great. His ideas aren't always executed maybe as well as other guitar players execute their own ideas. Randy Rhoads, for example, who Ozzy Osbourne's guitar player, excellent executor of his own ideas. Jimmy Page, not the greatest executor of his own electric guitar ideas, but he's so creative and what's making him a genius. That's what makes him a genius. And of course, his acoustic guitar playing is on another level. That, you know, he's his own thing. He's a god in that way. So there's a quote from Eddie Van Halen saying about Jimmy Page's guitar playing that Jimmy Page plays guitar like a left-handed child with a broken hand or something like that. It's just so, it's like, all right, man. I mean, it's Eddie Van Halen. I mean, Eddie Van Halen is another person who is an excellent executor of his own ideas. I mean, that guy he's one of those guitarists that could go in one take, amazing solo. He gets up and leaves. That's what happened on "Beat It," for example, on Michael Jackson's song "Beat It." I mean, there's that story that I'm maybe people know, maybe they don't know, but Quincy Jones called Eddie Van Halen up at home. If I can tell the story,
yeah.
Quincy Jones somehow randomly called Eddie Van Halen up at his house. Eddie Van Halen picked up, and he's like, "Hello." It's like, "Hi, this is Quincy Jones." Eddie Van Halen's like, "Fuck you." Phone rings again. "What?" "It's Quincy Jones." "Fuck off. Quit calling me." So, third time.
Why? Because he didn't believe it was him?
Yeah, there was Eddie Van Halen didn't believe Quincy Jones was calling him at his house. It's like, this can't be. So the third time, he's like, "Listen, this is Quincy Jones. Is this Eddie Van Halen?" He's like, "Oh my God. Is this really Quincy Jones?" Like, Eddie Van Halen felt so bad. Quincy Jones was inviting him to come play on Thriller, which ended up being the greatest selling album of all time, or the second greatest selling album of all time, on what was "Beat It," what was to become "Beat It." And of course, Eddie Van Halen felt so terrible that he offered to go and do the session for free. So he went in and did all the rhythm guitar part, all those electric guitars on "Beat It." That's Eddie Van Halen. And then he laid down the guitar solo. I believe it was one take. I'm going to stand by that because it wouldn't surprise me, but I believe it's one take. And that's just, if anybody's going to make fun of Jimmy Page's playing, I think Eddie Van Halen can probably get away with it.
Get away with it.
I don't think Jimmy Page deserves it, but he could get away with it. You know?
You told me once, you made an analogy where, like, the Beatles, would you say that's still your favorite band all time?
I would say they hold the number one spot for me as far as bands go. Do I listen to them every day anymore? No. I don't even really read articles about them, or if they come up on the line, I kind of just breeze past it because I've spent so many years and so many hours listening to their music and reading about every aspect of all of our lives. But to answer your question, they still hold the number one spot as far as the greatest rock bands that has existed. I mean,
Why?
Because they took music farther than any band took it before them. They learned the rules and they broke them, and they created rules. They created new rules, and for other people to break and for other people to imitate. They created so many genres of music without really trying. They were all about experimenting. They were the ones that had achieved such popularity and they gave that up. They gave up live performing to dedicate themselves specifically to the studio and to the art of recording, and to the art of music production and the art of, songwriting. They basically created cinematic music, as far as I'm concerned. I guess an example would be listening to the obvious Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which is arguably one of their greatest albums, arguably one of the greatest albums that has ever, been recorded in the pop genre. And when they were creating that, they created that kind of to be listened to as a movie almost, or as a cinematic experience. And they were kind of the first ones to do that. I mean, obviously the Beach Boys did that a little bit before with Pet Sounds. And there were people that were trying to do that, but I think the Beatles kind of took it to another level of really taking those ideas, the ideas of cinema, the ideas of looking at music as art and as a composition, as opposed to just, the 3-minute songs that they had been writing,
Right.
I Want to Hold Your Hand, and the things that they were popular for in 1964. So I think they ultimately created started. They were the catalyst for many genres like punk music, for heavy metal, for heavier rock music. And the thing I really loved about them was the surprise. The element of surprise is always it's always refreshing in anything where we digest as humans. And the Beatles were full of surprises. I mean, they would have a very heavy song, they would have a blues song, they would have a nice ballad, they would even have a song that sounded like it was coming from the 1920s. They would have a completely traditional Indian, folk song with English lyrics, with sitars. There was just so many different styles of music. I can only say that they were just definitely the most creative, in my opinion. They're my number one band. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you told me once you had recently started appreciating the Stones more, like listening to them more and really developing an appreciation for them that's a little new in some ways. And then you compared the Beatles and the Stones to, was it Mozart and Bach?
So there's a kind of like this little line of, I would say.
Can you explain what you were saying to me?
Sure. Let me try to see if I can remember. So I think through the line of classical music, rock and roll, and country music, there are three artists that kind of resemble one another, and they're kind of sort of opposed to them. So you would have maybe somebody like Mozart versus Beethoven, for example, or you would have the Beatles versus the Stones, and you would have like Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings. And I think these, the people, I guess, on the side of like the Beatles and Mozart and Willie Nelson, they bring a positive air. They bring a light feeling to their music. They're not necessarily struggling with their humanity so much as bringing something divine down to us humans. Whereas the Stones and Beethoven and Waylon Jennings are openly struggling with their humanity. And we love that as human beings. We love to see that. There's a darker side to them. There's more of a struggle. You can feel that struggle, when you listen to their music. And that's what's so appealing. Like when you listen to Howlin' Wolf, Howlin' Wolf is the same way. Howlin' Wolf is just his voice. And that is someone who's been through something, and he's just, he's like, this is how it is, taking your heart and pulling it. Whereas like maybe someone like the Beatles kind of say, hey guys, let's take this let's escape reality. Whereas the Stones bring you reality, and the thing that I love about the Stones is that they're so rough. I've always had this kind of hard relationship with the Rolling Stones because they don't help you escape, which is what I kind of like about music. But they're made up of so many great parts that's what makes them brilliant, and of course their drummer Charlie Watts. To me, Charlie Watts is the greatest thing about their band. I mean, he's number one top thing about their band. He is so antithetical. Is that a word?
Yes.
to what our preconceptions of the Stones are, to what our impressions of what the Stones represent. The Stones represent rebellion. The Stones represent messiness, sloppiness, drunkenness, womanizing. And Charlie Watts is this clean-cut jazz drummer who wears a suit. When he's playing, he's so unassuming, and his time is just, and his parts are just perfect. It's just
impeccable.
The most perfect. It's just the most perfect. Doesn't need anything more. Doesn't need anything less. It's perfect. Whereas you get somebody like Keith Moon from The Who, or John Bonham, who they're also perfect. They're perfect in a different way. They're perfect in a bombastic way. And it's just like unbelievable. Charlie Watts, he's a gentleman. He also quite literally and figuratively held the Stones together, because there were times when Keith Richards and Mick Jagger were fighting and they were going to break up, and Charlie Watts was their counsel. He was a very soft-spoken guy, and he would reason with them and voice the other's side to the other. And but the Stones overall are much rougher. They're certainly just kind of going to get down in the mud, and
and
they want to bring you down. And Beethoven also at the same time.
Rougher?
Yeah, Beethoven had a really tough life. If you want to get down to the creative process, I mean, he struggled with the creative process a little bit. I think, everyone in comparison to Mozart did. I mean, for him, it was very easy. It just flowed from him. Beethoven struggled with his humanity in that way. Beethoven was also very obviously creative. I mean, one of the greatest technical. This is a great example of someone who learned the rules and then broke them. Beethoven came of age during the classical era, and the classical era was if there were ever rules, there were the most rules in society. It was during the classical era, and in this case, we're talking about music. So Beethoven learned the rules. He could play like Mozart. He was one of the greatest pianists in Europe. He wasn't the greatest, but he was one of the greatest performing pianists. Meaning performing other people's music and touring, and his technical ability was definitely the top. As time went on, he came at a time when obviously the French Revolution was happening, and then Napoleon became the emperor, made himself emperor of France. So there was this complete shift in thought in the world. Along with that came a shift in the way that music was looked at, and Beethoven was right at the crux of that. And so in Beethoven's early music, you hear a very proper an imitation of maybe Mozart or Haydn or these other great classical composers. In his middle period, you definitely hear like Symphony No. 5, which is the biggest, most popular symphony, but you hear these other works that are he's just kind of the Incredible Hulk. He's like, here I am, guys. Listen. He just, he throws the rules out the window. He keeps them. He keeps the form, but he starts bending the rules a little bit. And he's like, I'm going to do this. How do you like that? And I'm going to do it. and it's like, he didn't care. He banged on the piano harder than everyone. He's just like, he was like a beast. And then it was his later works when he was completely deaf, which is astounding. It's just astounding when you think about it. He lost his hearing and he still created these works, namely the Ninth Symphony. Now here's a way that Beethoven broke the rules. Normally, throughout classical music, a symphony has three movements. It has a fast opening, which is sonata form, which is a certain A, B development, and then the A, B comes back in a different key, and there's a form to it. Then there's a slow movement, and then there's a third faster movement. Okay, three movements. Well, as Beethoven wrote 9 symphonies, Mozart wrote 41 symphonies, Haydn wrote 100 and something symphonies. Beethoven wrote 9, and they're all just their own masterpieces. The Ninth Symphony, I believe, had 5 movements, and it was I believe it was the first symphony to employ an entire chorus, entire choir. So he really broke the rules there. He kind of was just like he's just like, let's put it all in there, guys, and it's just this divine work. And when you add to it the fact that he wrote it when he was completely deaf, it's you can't even can you imagine?
I think that speaks to the fact that it's like, for people who are that talented in music, it's like a language or something, because you can lose your hearing entirely and you still see all the words in your head. You still know how to write, It's amazing.
And anyway, so there were other personal things that were happening in Beethoven's life. He was very notorious for falling in love. He would fall in love with his students all the time. They were married or they had, I was like, come on, man. But he was he was a quintessential romantic. He was a romantic.
He was in love with being in love.
He was in love, and he would fall in love with the students, and they would fall in love with him, but they couldn't marry him because he didn't have the status that their fiance or their husband did, because they were noblemen, or they were very rich, wealthy men, and Beethoven could never provide. Beethoven made a great living in his lifetime as a composer compared to some other composers, but he wasn't of nobility. He was a very eccentric loner. He was a weird guy. He was weird. he was. I mean, that's just the way it is. He was an outsider. He was weird.
Yeah.
And he was. I mean, I don't know if I would have really wanted to hang out with him necessarily. I mean, I maybe would have wanted to listen to him play the piano, but he was just that weird friend, And he's just a genius, and he just had a horrible temper. I mean, he was just. There's so many things in his personal life. He had all these things where he was fighting for custody of his sister's son because his brother had passed away at an early age, and then he was accusing his sister-in-law of not being able to take care of her son because he was accusing her of being promiscuous and like kind of immoral woman took her to court. There were all these legal battles. He finally got custody of the son. The son was very, very distraught to be taken away from his mother. And then he lived with Beethoven. Beethoven was overbearing and controlling and had this, he was like kind of just almost like a bipolar with him, very psychologically abusive. The child ended up trying to commit suicide. I mean, it was just all these things that were happening. And then Beethoven's reputation got ruined. And the short version of that, to that answer to that, is that his life was very dark, and there was he had a very tumultuous spirit. And yeah, there was darkness in Mozart's life too, but Mozart, you rarely hear that darkness come out in his music. Rarely. I mean, rarely. You do hear it sometimes, and beautifully in some of Mozart's pieces, but you rarely hear it. He didn't let on. Number one, because of his personality. Number two, because of how he made his money. He had to compose for parties, and he had to compose for nobility. So he had to write cheerful, upbeat music. And Beethoven was writing for himself. He published a lot of his music. He self-published it, and he would, sell his piano pieces. And so he didn't really have to necessarily please an audience at a certain point of his life. So he could be a little more introspective. So there's the dichotomy between the light and the dark, Same with the Beatles and the Stones. The Beatles kind of came out and they were doing Ed Sullivan. They were doing 1964 Beatles stuff. I Want to Hold Your Hand and She Loves You and all that kind of stuff. And they were pleasing an audience, And then of course, they kind of got sick of it because they're creative,
Yeah.
and wanted to reinvent themselves. But anyways, that was a long.
I love hearing it. I hope other people did as well. And you gave me more detail on that than we've talked about off camera.
Mm-hmm.
A couple more comments from the chat. Thank you guys for interacting. Thanks for hanging out with us on my birthday. If you're just joining, this man is my husband, Anthony Garcia. You can find him on YouTube, Anthony Garcia Music. I say that because someone in the chat just Googled you, babe, and they found...
No, we can't do. You got to put music at the end of it.
Yeah, there's a murderer. That's a different guy.
If you Google my name, you're going to find a guy. It's like a
doctor
that murdered some people.
Yeah.
His patients. And then there's this like Samoan guy.
There's a Samoan Anthony Garcia that does music too.
He's from Australia, and he looks like me, but like 50 pounds heavier, and he has a ponytail, and he plays flamenco music. It's just like,
it's like a little, like 100 pounds heavier.
Maybe.
He's a bigger
he looks like
guy.
This.
Yeah.
But anyways, Anthony Garcia Music.
AnthonyGarciaMusic.com is where you can find his music and his touring dates. Kathy Hurd, thank you for the super chat, lady. 1999. She says, "Happy birthday. I love you, Keri. I love you. I love that you're hanging out with us on this day, making it fun." Doc Savage, "Happy birthday, Keri. Anthony, your wife is hilarious." Thank you. Question: how do you feel about the Pixies and their contribution?
I mean, I'm not really, wasn't a really huge Pixies fan.
I was a big Pixies fan.
Not because I don't like them, not because I don't respect their contribution to music, but I never really got too heavy into that side of music growing up. Like I said, I was more into, the metal side of it. I was a skater, back in 1987 and, 1986, 87, 88. And so my buddies that I hung out with, half of us listened to metal, and the other half listened to, interestingly enough, punk and hip hop. So they were all into, like, when Ice-T came out with like Cop Killer and like all that stuff. So I learned vicariously about that side of music from them. They were into like Fugazi, 7 Seconds, Minor Threat, the Misfits, and all that stuff. And I ended up liking a lot of that music. It didn't speak to me the same way, but I liked it. And to me, I think the Pixies were in that vein. And I love the Pixies. They went on to, the girls, I think it was Kim Deal. They went on to do the Breeders. Isn't that right? To form the band called the Breeders.
I'm not sure. I just I really liked
Surfer Rosa, of course.
Here Comes Your Man. That's a great song.
Isn't that Velvet Underground?
No.
Oh, it isn't. Okay, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
I know David Bowie covered one of their songs on his album called Heathen, which came out in like 2000. It was like it was off of Surfer Rosa, actually, which was the Pixies, big album. I mean, they had a lot of big albums, but that was the one I really knew. But yeah, they're great. Yeah, yeah. So somebody says Kim and Kelly Deal are in the Breeders. Yeah, I love the Breeders too. They're great.
Let's see. What are your pronouns, Anthony? That's from Adam. Hey, Adam.
Is this a grammar question? I'm not very good at grammar.
He's not good at grammar. Waiting for My Man is the Velvet Underground. So there you go.
Waiting for my man.
Yeah, that's different. Where's My Mind, Adam? Yeah, great Pixies song. Here we go. Anthony's YouTube Pirate put it in the chat before he had to take off. You can find it there. We've also got it linked below. Thank you for doing that, Pirate. We've got a question for you from Asinicia. Says, what was Anthony's inspiration for haunted hotels?
So Haunted Hotels is one of my songs, and we didn't even really talk about the art of songwriting or what that is, because which is kind of another thing, which I could very, very quickly summarize it as quickly as I can, because I know we're probably not have a ton of time left. But to me, songwriting, we've talked about music. We've talked about you can get from point A to point B with a skill level, with a painting, or with any kind of skill level, with any skill set. You can get from point A to point B, beginner to expert. It's tangible. There's hours that you can spend doing that and get better at it, and you can see tangible progress. Well, songwriting to me is it's the great equalizer. It's like every human being is capable of songwriting. There are people who are great musicians that are songwriters. There are people who don't play an instrument at all that are great songwriters. It's an equalizer in the sense that you can't, just regardless of your musical ability, that doesn't have anything to do with your ability to write songs. And so it's just it's something that's just, it's elusive. It's just a thing, something that's just, it's something I've struggled with my whole life, but I've wanted to get better at. Leonard Cohen calls it getting down into the trenches. That's a whole other side of things too. I think Leonard Cohen would be along the Beethoven side of the struggle with humanity. Anyways, this Haunted Hotels is one of my songs, and it's one of those songs that I kind of struggled with a little bit. And I wrote it. There's a hotel near the Alamo in San Antonio, just across the street, and it's called the Menger Hotel, Menger, and it's reportedly very haunted. And I was there at the Alamo one day, I don't know, a couple of years ago. I'm going
to interject. I've stayed at the Menger Hotel.
Oh yeah.
And got a guy there to walk me around and tell me about it. Is the stories about why it's haunted and which rooms are haunted and stuff like that. It's a pretty, for those who haven't been there, it's a beautiful hotel. You should check it out. Okay.
Yeah, it is. And the way that you're fascinated with true crime, I'm very fascinated with paranormal and anything that has to do with paranormal, even though I'm terrified of ghosts, or the possibility of encountering a ghost, which I never have, thankfully. Anyway, so I went to this hotel one day. I was just killing times for some reason. I went down to the Alamo, and I went across the street to the Menger, and there was these old pianos. There's an old piano in there when it had a ribbon in front, like a barrier. You couldn't touch the piano, and it was from the 18 somethings or whatever. And the song just came to me, and the song is about basically, it's about these two people who, I guess, if you want to interpret however you want to interpret it, it's a love song, and it's about a man or someone singing to a lover, basically enticing them to say goodbye to their friends, to smile at your enemies, say goodbye to your friends, tell them this is where the story ends, essentially bringing them over from life to death to live with him eternally in this haunted hotel. We'll dance through walls to the music in the halls, and you can hear the pianos play themselves in haunted hotels, and they won't even know it's us haunting the room, that kind of thing. So it's just like a kind of a cute song.
Like a ghost song.
But that's the inspiration for it.
Alan says, Haunted Hotels is one of those songs that I see images in my head, like a personal music video. That's the thing about your music, Hun, is it's like, you described one of the Beatles albums as being cinematic, Sgt. Pepper. Mm-hmm. Your music has been described as cinematic Americana. And I think that's the best description. When people ask me what your music is like, I have trouble. So it's like Spanish guitar and classical piano and a little country western and rock and metal guitar. It's hard to explain, but cinematic Americana does it. Like, that's a great description, because for your songs, like a lot of like the new one, Devil in My Heart, Fire Song, Fire Song is a song where I see a Western film. In my head, I see the drone camera shot panning out over the horses running. I see Young Guns in my head. Do you know what I mean? Like there's like a whole movie and story and visuals, and that's really kind of that's how I think of your music. So yeah, Adam, Alan, I would agree. Ken Lipson's here. Hello, Ken. Ken, I wanted to apologize to you. I didn't realize till after the fact that I missed a super chat from you last time, and I just want to thank you for it. What did you miss? Well, Anthony's been talking about it's my birthday, first of all. This is my husband, Anthony Garcia, musician. And he's been talking about classical music, metal music, learning languages, the similarities between language and music, and the dark and the light in song and songwriting. And let's see, we've got a couple more questions for you from people in the chat. I want to make sure I think I've covered all the super chats now. So I'm going to bring up some of the chats. Therese, hello, Therese. She says, chili, beans or no beans?
Me?
Yeah.
Beans? I don't know. Are you supposed to
You
not
don't
do
have
that?
in
I
Texas?
don't know. Is this a thing? I don't know. I don't.
I mean,
beans.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care. There's a couple of like traditional Texas things, or I would think not Texas, but just things that I would think you would have like a strong opinion on, or that you would like. You hate avocados and guacamole, which is weird. How can you live in Texas and be Mexican and hate guacamole? Bizarre. But then on other things, randomly, you guys, Anthony will get very passionate. Like we were at the grocery store last night, and I was telling him about our friend and housemate Tina, how Tina just had tamales for the first time. I thought it was so cute. She came home, she's like, Harry, have you ever had a tamale? I'm like, yes. and she was like, got them from the grocery store from the HEB, and she was eating them with sour cream. And Anthony stops. He's like, what? Like, you were mad. You were mad.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, how can you? I was really upset that she ate tamales with sour cream. That was very upsetting to me, and that they came from a grocery store. I think that's a bad way to experience tamales for the first time. And somebody is asking, I hate guac. What WTF is wrong with W/U? I think what happened was that my mom ate, when she was pregnant with me, she ate avocados nonstop. And I think that's kind of what maybe got me not liking avocados.
Well, I mean, you had so many in the womb. Hefty Joe says, even a bad tamale is a good tamale. Yeah, you should see. He was so offended and had a whole conversation about it. And then we came home, had a conversation with her about how he's going to go to get. Do you say you're going to go to one of the grandmas around here and get some real?
Within a 5-mile radius of this house, there are at least 10 grandmas at home right now making handmade tamales, and I'm going to find them and I'm going to bring a dozen home, and we're all going to share them. Because you don't go to HEB, you do not go to the grocery store not for your first experience.
No.
You know.
Pirate was going to ask you your favorite band. We talked about the Beatles. Let's see. Here we go. Spaceman says, happy birthday, Keri. Hi, Anthony. Amy, any thoughts on why we are such a breeding ground for musicians? Now, I don't know if he means Austin or if he means Lubbock, where you're from. But do you want to answer that?
Well, I would say Lubbock is a breeding ground because there's kind of nothing to do there. And if you go to my hometown of Lubbock, there on any given night, you're going to go out and hear music. And the musicians are from Lubbock. They grew up in Lubbock. They went to high school in Lubbock. Their family was from Lubbock for a couple of generations. In short, no one actually moves to Lubbock to pursue music, but you have some great musicians there. I believe there's a certain energy there in the soil, and people just. There's not really a lot to do there. There's a lot of space and a lot of mental space there. Austin is not really a breeding ground for music. It's a place where people come from other places to pursue music and to be part of the scene that has kind of, I mean, if you think about it, Willie Nelson came here in the 70s and created the music scene here from another place. I mean, he was from Abbott, which is right up the road. He had been in Nashville. He had been in the Pacific Northwest for so long. He had been trying to make it in Nashville for so long. He'd been trying in other places, and he decided to come to Austin because it was cheap and it was a little
create it in Austin.
And he was just like, this place, cheap place to live. and I'm going to just do. And he came and created a scene here. So it's not a breeding ground. It's, oh, Texas.
So
Okay, so about Texas in general. He clarified and said Texas.
yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of great music from Texas. I think Texas is unique. I mean, Texas, we have a lot of. I like to say that we're part of the Southwest. Texas is that spot on the map that is in the east. It's woodlands, and in the west it's desert. In the south, there's beaches. In the far southwest, you have mountains. We kind of encompass a lot of different things here, as far as terrain goes, and as far as and I think it's metaphorical to other things that come out of Texas.
Do you think it's also part of the culture of, I mean, Texas has such a spirit of independence. I would say arguably more than other American states. I mean, Texas is so, even before I moved here. I'm from the South. I'm from South Carolina.
Mhm.
Texas is not the South. It's
No, it's
also
not.
not the East or the West or the North. Texas is its own thing, and it's like there's just this sort of, I've never lived in a state or been in a state before where you see more state pride in terms of people fly the Texas flag here. They fly the old flag too, the one with the blue one with the star that says, like,
Mhm.
when it was Republic of Texas.
Yeah.
You know, there's really that, like, come and take it Alamo spirit. Like, there's something about the culture here, I think. Do you think that's really independent that maybe breeds creativity, or am I just
Well, first of all, I mean, we're the best state, so there's that's the first part of it. And I think the spirit of Texas, what it is, the way it was founded, the way it was settled, the conflict that happened here in order to get to that point, that all kind of leads to, there's a lot of tension there. There was a lot of, I mean, you're talking about the Spanish, you're talking about the Mexicans, you're talking about, I mean, Mexico, the country of Mexico. You're talking about the Comanche. You're talking about the settlers that came here from other states, from Missouri, from wherever, Louisiana, from all these different states that in the 1800s that were all kind of trying to find their way, and Texas was that place. Moses Austin, who's Stephen F. Austin's father, came to Austin because he was a banker in Missouri, and there was a Great Depression in the 1820s or something like. There was a depression during that time, and he went bankrupt. So he came to Texas to they were giving away, I believe it was the Spanish government or someone was giving away plots of land, and so it was this place where people were kind of coming. These, like, people that were kind of having hard times were coming to have a new life in Texas, and they were given land grants, and so you had a certain kind of people coming from other states. Then you had the Comanche here, who thought it was their territory. Then you had the Mexican government, who thought it was their territory. So it's just a lot of, I think a lot of that contributes to the spirit of who we are here. And I think we have a wonderful history, and it's still kind of this wild place. I mean, we still have this reputation of just those crazy Texans, and that's right. And I think I stand by that. I don't care. I'm happy. That's where I tell people I'm from. I don't say I'm from the U.S. I say I'm from Texas.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just wanted to apologize, Dion, if you're listening. I blocked you by mistake instead of the porn bot, and I think I just unblocked you successfully. So if you're here, oh, you're back! Yay! Yay, Dion. That was a mistake. My bad. I was trying to grab that porn bot. I need to just let Cheeky Mare's here. I'm gonna put Cheeky Mare on it so I'm not distracted. I'm gonna let you block them. I trust you to be quick fingered like a sharpshooter in Texas.
You just said
So
porn and quick fingered in one sentence. That's
I'm sorry. You got me there.
sorry.
I always step into jokes. I always walk into things with you sometimes. It's like the funniest. We have sort of a one-upmanship in terms of that's what they them said jokes, and and,
I don't know what you're
and
talking about. I've never
you
said
don't know.
anything like that. I've
You've
never said
never
anything like
never made any joke like
that. I would
that.
never make such a joke.
Yeah. Happy birthday. Oh wait, we already did that one. Well, this is a good one. You may say you don't know what this means too. Is he based?
I'm based in Texas, maybe.
He's Texas based, yes. Andrew Joyner gives a super chat of 5 lira, Turkish lira.
Turkish lira.
Thank you for the cakes and the moolah. Frankie says, was Keri raised musical? It seems like she was. I'm not sure what that means. Was I raised playing? Well, I took piano when I was a kid, but I was not like Anthony. I was not someone who was just talented at the piano and learned it on my, no. I was like a normal person. It was like, oh, as a child, your parents sign you up for piano lessons. And I hated it. I wish in retrospect I had stuck with it, but I really didn't like the lessons. And I like to be able to play a couple of things, but I didn't like the practice, and I wasn't naturally talented at it, I don't think. And so I got to where I learned how to play. I've had the time of my life from Dirty Dancing, and then I quit. That was like my achievement. And then I did play in the band. I did love in the marching band in middle school and high school. I played the clarinet. I was first clarinet as well. I really enjoyed it. I was good at it, if I do say so myself. Not naturally talented like you, just became good through skill. You were playing flute, I know, and
This is flute. This is clarinet.
Oh, really? You don't turn it like that. Well, so I did the clarinet, and then to do something a little different, my senior year, I learned trombone because I thought trombone was probably the most different from clarinet, and I wanted to learn something really different, and that was hard. And did trombone my last year in high school, and I didn't stay with it. I played at Duke had a band, and I was in the band for some of the football games, some of the basketball games and stuff, but I didn't stay with it after that. And
I didn't know you played trombone.
Oh, yeah.
Did it ever get rusty?
What does that mean?
It just means did the trombone ever get rusty?
I don't think so. Not that I recall. This is see, this is a game of like not laughing.
Let's stop being cute and start being serious.
Stop being so funny.
So how long do we usually? I don't want to bore people. I don't want to wear out our.
No, you're not boring people.
Okay.
Do you think could you spare 15 more minutes? Then we wrap
Yeah, yeah, fine. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I just want to make it like.
Babe, people, I'm enjoying it. I hope people are enjoying it. What else was I going to say? Oh, in terms of music appreciation, though, as a child, I listened to, my dad had a lot of great records, which you own now. He gave us a lot of those.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah,
he used to have a lot of Beatles and stuff, but this guy AJ in high school stole a bunch of those. So he doesn't.
You dated someone in high school?
I dated someone, and
didn't tell me about this.
My dad listened to a lot of the Beatles. Carole King, the Moody Blues. I developed a deep early love of Carole King because of my dad. Fleetwood Mac. Oh my goodness, as you know, one of my favorite bands.
Really?
And, yeah.
Really? The funny thing, if I can say, the funny thing about Keri is that when we started dating, and when even not so much now, but it's still Fleetwood Mac Rumors is just that's the album that starts the day, and it's like Landslide and all these different whatever the songs are on there, I don't remember, but it's like
starts with Dreams.
Dreams. Yeah, starts with
I
Dreams.
play that one first.
Dreams. And the funny thing about it is like I think that's one of your favorite bands, but I've never heard you talk about them. I've actually played them all the time, and it's like your favorite band. It's so funny to me because like when I love a band, I learn everything about them, and I talk about them, and I like read everything about their lives. And I've never heard you talk about them once, but I know that they're your favorite band. It's so funny. Rihanna, yeah, that's a great song.
Rihanna,
somebody said in the chat.
Oh, I used to start every morning with Dreams for like 2 years because it would just get me in the right mood. Yeah,
I got your Rumors on vinyl.
I don't talk about them because it's sort of like, what is there to talk about? Like, listen, I just listen to it because it's good.
It's like funny. You don't have to. I just think it's funny.
It's funny, but then there are some musicians I talk about Dolly Parton, or I talk about Johnny Cash because they're also interesting to me, very interesting to me as people and figures.
Yeah, of
And
course.
so there's a lot more for me to think about there. And so I guess that's why, I'll talk about them more. Let's see. Here we go.
Allman Brothers. Somebody asked me, Allman Brothers are Grateful Dead. Allman Brothers. I don't really know Rory Gallagher very well, but I do know that I knew he's great. I've heard him. He's Irish, and everybody loves him in Ireland. I mean, I don't want to talk about somebody I don't really know a lot about, but what I've heard, I mean, obviously he's a groundbreaking guitar player, and I love his style. He's a lot like Jeff Beck. I love his playing. Not Robin Ford. My gosh, I can't remember the guy's name. Anyways, that sort of like, Jeff Beck style, that real like driving the tubes, really like, powerful guitar playing. I love that.
Let's see. How do you like them apples? What is that, a music joke?
No, he's just, how do you like them apples? But he spelled it in like a German Apfel.
Oh. Cheeky Mare put up links to Anthony's channel if you want to check it out.
Thank you. I just got 303 subscribers the other day.
You guys, we can get him to 304. Come on.
I'm hoping to get to 310 by the end of the year. So I'm hoping. But,
if we get him to 310, we're throwing a party.
Yeah.
We have. I want to ask you about something.
Robin Trower. That's who it is. Spaceman. Spaceman's got it right there. Robin Trower. There's that's who I was looking for. He's Robin. There's a great album that I was really into, and it's a live album. His 3-piece in England. It's like in the 70s, and I can't remember the name of that album, but man, it's. I didn't know who Robin Trower was until like 4 years ago, and man, I'm telling you what. You when you hear him play, he sounds like Hendrix. I mean, his sound is just like Hendrix, but it's not derivative. It's really hard to describe. But it's Robin Trower for sure. I wish I knew the album off the top of my head, but it's a great album. Good, yeah. Spaceman, for sure. That's who I was thinking about.
So you have this new song out, "Devil in My Heart."
Yeah, "Devil in My Heart."
And you guys just finished the studio recording of it, but there is a live version up on your channel.
Yes.
I'm just going to play the very beginning of it. Okay. I'm going to put it on, and then I want to ask you a question about it. And I know playing from a YouTube video doesn't have the same quality. You've got the studio version that's coming out. When is that going to be out?
It's coming out on Friday, this Friday.
This Friday. And people will be able to get that where, or hear that where?
On Spotify, and all the other evil platforms.
Look, babe, it wants us to buy this oven.
No, it really doesn't want us to.
It's that
not for $4,699. Hell no.
But it keeps following me around on the internet ever since I looked at it. Okay, here we go. You guys, this is "Devil in My Heart," an original song by Anthony Garcia. Oh, it's muted.
I got the devil in my heart. I got his song upon my lips. Every time she moves her hips, I got the devil in my heart. I got the warpath in my blood. I got the scalps of 50 men. It's hard to stop once you begin. When you got the devil in your heart. She broke my heart in Comancheria on the day the Spanish came. She took me far into the desert.
I agree, Leah.
How can I be the one to blame? She's got the devil in her heart. Every time she moves her lips, it's like a tempest or eclipse. She's got the devil in her heart.
My band is great.
I love your band.
Me too. They're all great people.
This is violinist Megan Burson.
I met the devil way out west. He had a star upon his chest. The posse followed us out there. 40 days without no rest. He said the line of good and evil runs down the heart of every man. It's only then you'll understand that you got the devil in your heart. I reached for my gun, he reached for his. He had that smile upon his lips, and he didn't see my sleight of hand when I shot the devil in the heart. I shot the devil in the heart. On the day the Spanish came, how can I be the one to blame when I got the devil in my heart?
Okay, I'm gonna just stop it there.
Yeah, this is good.
Because I love it. I was only gonna listen to a couple seconds, but then I wanted to listen to more. So thank you guys. People were saying that a couple people said the link to your channel here on YouTube is broken. So I just dropped the link in the chat. I don't know why that is, that it's broken. I will see if I can fix that. Like where we linked it below the video. I'll check it out afterwards. But if you want to hear more and hear better quality than us streaming it on this show, you can go to Anthony Garcia Music here on YouTube. Make sure you search for Anthony Garcia Music to find the right channel. It's not the very big Samoan guy. It's the cowboy hat guy. Yes. So, and then we have another super chat. This is from the Front Porch Conservative. Just came in. Thank you, sir. 499 says, "Happy birthday, Lady Keri. Sir Anthony's voice reminds me a little of Zach Brown. The lyrics are Texas storytelling style. The fiddler rocks. Great song." Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, can you introduce the players? Chip asked.
Yes. So the violinist is Megan Burson, who's a fantastic player. She's also a wonderful friend. Well, they're all great friends, but Megan, who I've been playing with now for, I don't know, before we even met, maybe 4 years, 5 years, something like that. So Megan Burson. And then the drummer is also named Keri. Her name's Keri Sheehan, and she's a fantastic drummer. We've been playing together now for about 1.5 years. And then my bass player who also is the producer of my albums that I've been making, and an incredible sound guy and just sound engineer and all that. His name is Jeremy Fowler. And he also has a Beatles cover band too.
He has a Beatles cover band.
Yeah, that's called. That's why he's playing the Hofner bass, like in that video, like Paul McCartney's bass. And they're called Lonely Hearts Club, and they're here in Austin. They're fantastic. And we play with his drummer sometimes too. So,
and also Keri also drums for Bob Apple, who does all these old Western, like the really great country music, like the classic.
the old stuff, like Bob Wills kind of stuff, like Buck Owens, like the old kind of. It's great. She's into that style of music, so she's really good.
I love it. We got to do a date night at this old-fashioned honky tonk with a big dance floor. Anthony wasn't working that night. We got to do a date night, and she was drumming for Bob Apple, and that was like.
And they were all wearing the uniforms, like the white shirts with the bow with the red tie. It was cool.
It was such a treat. Poetry Painter says, I got Chris Isaak vibes, but I really enjoy it. You know what? There's a Chris Isaak cover that Anthony does on his channel, Wicked Games. It's an amazing cover. Check that one out. I think it like my friend who wrote you about it afterwards. I think it's better. And it's one of those cases where personal opinion, I like it better than the original, and I like the original a lot. But yeah. So, okay, we're going to wrap this up. It's been about 2 hours. If you guys have any final questions, there was so much I wanted to talk to you about, and I feel like we just scratched the surface. So you'll have to come back and let us talk to you again sometime. This is from Cheeky Mare. She says you can buy Anthony's album here, AnthonyGarciaMusic.com.
And we have that album coming out on Friday, or the song coming out on Friday. It's a proper studio recording that's going to come out. We put a lot of work into it, so that's coming out on Friday the 14th. So just whatever, if you're on Spotify and all that, do that. If you're in Fort Worth on November 5th, we're playing at the Ridgely Theater. My band is in Fort Worth, Texas. And what else? We got a couple of videos coming out pretty soon, and it's also Keri's birthday today. Happy birthday.
It's her birthday. We're going to the Barrel later.
The Barrel. I'll eat some chicken fried steak. Some biscuits.
I'm going to buy a doily. I'm going to buy something with a butterfly on it and eat some cornbread.
So thanks, Keri, for having me on. I kind of felt a little weird, when you asked me to do this. Of course, I did it without hesitation because it's your birthday and I love you. But I was kind of like, it's like, isn't it? Don't you talk enough about me on the show? I mean, sometimes it's like if I was your listener, and every time I heard you say my husband this and my husband that, it would be
really.
I'd be like, X out of the video. X. I don't want to hear about your husband.
I told Chrissy Mayer when I was doing Simcast, that my only Sims are my husband and my dog. So don't worry about it.
That's not true.
Oh man. Oh, look, it's almost better. I'm laughing without coughing. Woohoo. So anyway, I love you. Thank you for doing the show. Thank you guys for hanging out with us and being kind and asking good questions and telling and for all the birthday wishes. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you get to go to the Barrel soon.
Thank y'all for listening, and thank y'all for listening to my musical rantings. It was a great. Thank you for letting me talk about all that stuff. It's fun.
Cool. Okay. I've got to roll this. Here we go. Bye. The mission statement for the Church on the Square in Georgetown, Texas, is to revive the church, reach the city, and renew the culture. I happened to attend the very first church service just because I saw an ad on Facebook, which is interesting because I know other people who found the church that way, and Facebook has since stripped our church of the ability to advertise. So I'm here to tell the deprogrammed audience, anyone who's interested, where they can find them. That first service, by the way, that was when I knew I had found my home, because the sermons are
something that feeds your mind and your soul. Our pastor is Bradley J. Helgerson. I often describe him as a mix between Jordan Peterson and C.S. Lewis. If you're interested in listening to some of the sermons, you can find them all online on the Church on the Square YouTube page. You can also find them online at thechurchonthesquare.org. If you happen to live in the Georgetown, Texas area, you're also welcome to visit with us any Sunday. We meet at 10 a.m. outside right on the Georgetown Square on the courthouse lawn. If it's hot or if it's raining, then we meet in Ken's Guitars, which is also right there on the square. I hope to see some of you there, and thank you very much.